By the time I realized I was no longer invited to my best friend's wedding, I had already been erased from it. Not dramatically, not loudly, no explosion, no fight, no tearful phone call at midnight. Just gone. I was standing in my kitchen when the last piece clicked. Morning light slanted across the counter, catching dust in the air. My phone buzzed, and I expected it to be another automated reminder hotel check-in, maybe. Or the florist confirming delivery times like they had been doing for weeks. Instead, it was silence, where something used to be. The group chat bridesmaids was gone, not muted, not archived, deleted, as if it had never existed. I remember staring at the screen, thumb hovering. Refreshing like that might bring it back. It didn't. My name wasn't there anymore. Neither were the jokes, the late-night voice notes, the frantic dress photos, the messages where I'd reassured her, again and again, that everything would be perfect. My stomach dropped, slow and heavy, like missing a step in the dark. At first, I told myself it was a glitch. It had to be, but then the other things started surfacing quietly, efficiently, like someone closing accounts after a death. The hotel emailed me to say my room block had been reassigned. The tone was polite, apologetic, confused, even. They said my name no longer appeared on the reservation list connected to the wedding party. A vendor texted asking if I was still involved or if they should route questions elsewhere. Another asked who would be handling payments now. One by one, the systems corrected themselves, and I wasn't part of the equation anymore. No one told me I was uninvited. No one said the words. There was no fight, no warning, no goodbye, just a clean cut. That's what unsettled me the most, not the loss, but the precision. The way it felt less like an emotional decision and more like a process. Like someone had sat down with a checklist and calmly removed me from every place I existed. At that point, you're probably thinking what I thought. Jealousy, a betrayal I didn't know I committed. Some unspoken social crime. That assumption makes sense. It's also wrong. Because 2 weeks before the wedding, exactly 14 days out, I finally worked up the nerve to text her. Hey, did I do something? The message delivered instantly. The typing bubble never appeared. She didn't block me. She didn't argue. She didn't explain. She just never responded. That silence stretched for days, thick and humming, until it started to feel deliberate, like a door held shut from the other side. And then, the morning of the rehearsal dinner, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. No profile photo. No name. Just one line of text. Please don't come tonight. Not because you're unwelcome, but because you're not supposed to be there. I read it 3 times. Not supposed to be there. Not can't. Not shouldn't. Not we'd prefer you didn't. Supposed. As if attendance wasn't my choice anymore. As if my presence violated some rule I didn't remember agreeing to. I typed back, "Who is this?" The message stayed unread. I stood there, in my bedroom, dress hanging on the closet door, the fabric catching the light like it always had in my imagination. My chest felt tight, my mouth dry, that strange metallic taste creeping up the back of my throat, the one you get when something is wrong, but you don't know how wrong yet. Every rational instinct told me to stay home, to protect my dignity, to let it go. But here's the thing no one tells you about being erased. It creates a vacuum, and into that vacuum rushes curiosity, fear, the unbearable need to understand. So I went anyway, not to cause a scene, not to beg, not to ruin anything. I just wanted the truth. And standing in that softly lit venue, heels clicking too loudly against polished floors, I finally got intercepted, not by my best friend, not by the groom, but by her mother, in a narrow service hallway that smelled faintly of linen and disinfectant. She stepped directly into my path, physically blocked me, and when I looked up, ready for anger, ready for accusation, I saw fear, real fear, barely contained. Her voice dropped to a whisper, trembling despite herself. "You don't know what role they gave you in this, do you?" And in that moment, everything I thought I understood about the last 10 years of my life cracked open. But to understand why they were so desperate to keep me out, we have to go back to the beginning. Before any of this happened, before the silence, before the erasure, There was a decade of muscle memory telling me I belonged there. We met when we were 19. The kind of friendship that forms before you've learned how to be careful with people, before you know how to measure what you give versus what you get. We were both broke, both dramatic, both convinced life was going to start any minute now if we could just get through the week. She was the magnetic one, the kind of girl strangers confided in after 10 minutes. I was the steady one, the listener, the fixer, the person who stayed when things got uncomfortable. It was an unspoken arrangement, and it worked. When her first serious relationship imploded, I slept on her floor for 3 nights because she couldn't stand being alone. When my father died, she brought over wine she couldn't afford and sat with me in silence, our backs against the couch, the TV off because noise felt wrong. We grew up together in that way, where your lives braid around each other. Jobs, moves, breakups, parents aging, futures changing shape. So when she called me one night, breathless, almost laughing, to say, "He proposed," I was already crying before she finished the sentence. I helped plan everything, not casually, not from the sidelines. I was there for the late-night Pinterest spirals, the venue tours that ran long, the dress fittings where she stepped out of the curtain and searched my face before the mirror. I was the one she texted when she panicked about seating charts, about family politics, about whether love was supposed to feel calmer than this. "You're the only one who actually tells me the truth," she said once, squeezing my hand too tightly. "Promise you won't let me mess this up." I promised. That's the thing about being the giver. You don't realize it's a role until you're stuck in it. The groom, let's call him Daniel, seemed fine at first. Polite, soft-spoken, always grateful in a way that felt practiced. He hugged with one arm, smiled without showing teeth, the kind of man who listened more than he talked, which everyone mistook for depth. He thanked me a lot, for helping her, for calming her down, for keeping things moving. But there were moments, small ones, that didn't sit right. Like the time I mentioned an inside joke from years ago, something harmless, and watched his smile freeze just long enough to notice. Or the way he corrected her stories gently but publicly, sliding his version in like an amendment. "No, babe, that's not how it happened," he'd say, laughing. And she'd laugh too, a beat too late, adjusting herself to fit his memory. Once, after too much wine, she admitted, "Daniel hates when people know things about me, from before him." I thought she was joking. She wasn't. Still, nothing felt dangerous, just managed. As the wedding got closer, the requests started piling up. Could I handle vendor calls? Could I front a deposit and get reimbursed later? Could I smooth things over with a difficult aunt who respected me more? I said yes, over and over, because that's what I did. Then, slowly, the tone shifted. Messages that used to start with jokes became transactional. Calls got shorter, gratitude thinned out, replaced by expectation. When I offered opinions, they were acknowledged and ignored. When I pulled back even slightly, she'd say things like, "I don't know what I'd do without you," and guilt would snap me back into place. I remember one night about a month before the wedding, standing in my kitchen at midnight, speakerphone on, listening to her cry about a seating arrangement that had gone sideways because of Daniel's parents. "I just need you to fix it," she said. "Not help. Fix." Something in me hesitated, just for a second, and Daniel's voice cut in, calm, almost amused. "She's really good at this stuff. It's kind of her thing." Her thing. I laughed it off. But after we hung up, the words stuck to me like lint. Then came the red flags I ignored, because they were inconvenient. The way Daniel would answer her phone sometimes. The way her mother stopped texting me directly and started routing everything through him. The way conversations would suddenly go quiet when I entered the room during planning meetings. I told myself I was imagining it. Stress does weird things to people, until the group chat disappeared, until my name slid off documents like it had never been typed there. And still, I tried to be generous with my interpretation. Maybe they were overwhelmed. Maybe someone had misunderstood. Maybe this was temporary. But here's what no one tells you about being quietly pushed out. The people doing it rely on your patience. They count on you not wanting to be dramatic, not wanting to assume malice, not wanting to make things worse. So you wait, and while you wait, they reorganize the world around you. By the time I showed up at the venue that night, heart pounding, palms damp, senses too sharp, I was already the only person in the building who didn't know the new rules. The hallway was narrow, lit by utilitarian fluorescents that hummed softly overhead. The bride's mother stood in front of me like she'd been expecting me all along. Up close, I could see how tired she was. Not wedding tired, something deeper. Her lipstick was slightly smudged. Her hands shook as she clasped them together. She didn't raise her voice, didn't scold me. She leaned in and said, "You really don't know, do you?" "Know what?" I asked, my voice coming out steadier than I felt. She glanced down the hall, then back at me. Her eyes searched my face, not for guilt, but for confirmation. "They think you already understand the arrangement," she said quietly. My skin prickled. "What arrangement?" She exhaled, sharp and shaky. "The one where you stay quiet." I laughed, because it sounded absurd. "About what?" That's when I noticed something else. People were watching us. Not openly, not obviously, but glances slid our way and disappeared. Conversations dipped. A man I recognized as one of Daniel's uncles stopped mid-sentence when he saw me. I wasn't supposed to be here. Not because I was unwanted, but because I disrupted something. "They believe you've agreed," she continued, her voice barely audible now. "They believe you know, and that you're being compensated." But the word hit me like ice water. "Compensated for what?" I asked. Her mouth opened, closed again. "I can't say that here." The music from the main room swelled suddenly, laughter spilling out as if on cue. The contrast was dizzying, celebration on one side of the wall, containment on the other. "You need to leave," she said. "Before someone notices you're confused." That was the moment something shifted inside me. Because confusion, I could handle. What I couldn't handle was the certainty dawning in her eyes. The certainty that everyone else believed a version of me I had never agreed to be. And standing there, erased and repurposed at the same time, I realized this wasn't about a wedding anymore. It was about control. And they thought they had me neatly boxed. Before you keep watching, pause for 1 second. If this story already feels familiar, if you've ever been slowly pushed out of a room you helped build, hit like. Not for me, for you. And if you want the rest of this story, because it gets darker before it gets honest, subscribe now. You don't want to miss what happens next. I didn't leave, not right away. I nodded at the bride's mother like I understood, like I was agreeing to something instead of unraveling. Then I stepped past her and into the restroom, locked myself into a stall, and pressed my forehead against the cool metal door. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to sit down. Compensated. Stay quiet. Arrangement. Words don't usually scare me. These ones did. I stared at my reflection in the dull mirror eyes, too bright, skin gone pale, and tried to run through every possible explanation that didn't end in something rotten. There had to be a misunderstanding. A crossed wire. Someone had assumed something about me and built an entire narrative on top of it. I pulled out my phone and texted her. "I'm here. We need to talk." The message showed as delivered. Seconds passed, then minutes. Nothing. When I stepped back into the hallway, the temperature felt different. Or maybe I was different. Either way, people noticed me now. A cousin I'd spent Thanksgiving with once looked straight through me. Daniel's aunt gave me a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Someone else leaned in and whispered something I couldn't hear, but I saw the way the listener's posture stiffened. They were watching to see what I would do. I finally spotted Daniel near the bar, laughing too loudly, one hand resting possessively on the small of my best friend's back. She looked beautiful, radiant even, and tense shoulders slightly hunched, smile carefully calibrated. I approached slowly. She saw me from across the room, and for a split second, the mask slipped. Fear, not anger, not betrayal. Fear. She excused herself from the conversation without explanation, and met me near a pillar wrapped in soft white fabric. "You shouldn't be here," she said immediately. "No hello. No hug." "I know," I replied. That's why we need to talk. Her eyes flicked toward Daniel, then back to me. Not now. Then when? My voice stayed calm, but I could feel the pressure building behind my ribs, like a scream trapped under glass. She swallowed. You said you were okay with this. My heart skipped. With what? Her brows knit together, genuine confusion creasing her face. You told my mum you understood, that you didn't want to be involved. I told your mum nothing, I said. I haven't spoken to her until tonight. Her breath hitched. Behind her, Daniel was watching us now. His smile hadn't faded, but his eyes were sharp, assessing, calculating. I don't know what game you're playing, she said quietly, panic threading through her voice. But this isn't the time. This isn't a game, I said. Someone thinks I know something important enough to erase me. She went very still. That was the moment I knew, not what it was, but that it was real. Daniel appeared at her side like he'd been summoned. Hey, he said lightly, though his hand tightened on her waist. Everything okay? She hesitated, just long enough. She's confused, he said, answering for her. Big emotions. Weddings do that. I looked at him, then really looked. The politeness, the practiced calm, the way his body angled subtly between us, creating distance without seeming aggressive. You think I agreed to stay quiet? I said, watching his reaction closely. About something I don't even know. His smile flickered. Barely. But it was enough. Let's not do this here, he said. We can talk after the wedding. Talk about what? I pressed. What exactly do you think I'm holding over you? That's when his expression hardened. Not angry. Not scared. Annoyed. Like a plan encountering friction. He leaned in, voice low. You've always been dramatic. The words landed with surgical precision. Old. Familiar. Weaponized. You need to leave, he continued, before you embarrass yourself. I turned back to her, desperate now. Do you believe I'd do that to you, after everything? She looked at me, eyes glossy, lips parted like she wanted to say something, and then she glanced at Daniel. I believe you know more than you're pretending, she said softly. It felt like being punched in slow motion. The room tilted, the music swelled. Someone laughed nearby, high and sharp, and it cut straight through me. That was it. That was the betrayal. Not loud, not cruel, just complete. I stepped back, suddenly very aware of my own body, how small I felt, how exposed, how alone. I don't know what you think you're protecting, I said, my voice shaking now, despite myself. But you're wrong about me. Daniel's relief was immediate. He smiled again, broader this time. We'll take care of it, he said, like we discussed, as if I'd been part of the conversation. I left the room then, not because they asked me to, but because staying would have broken something I couldn't put back together. Outside, the air was cool and damp, the night humming with insects and distant traffic. My hands felt numb. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I told you not to come. I typed back, fingers clumsy. Why does everyone think I agreed to something? This time, the reply came quickly. Because you're the safest option. I sank onto a low stone wall, dress brushing against cold granite. Safe for what? I wrote. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then the phone rang. I answered without thinking. The voice on the other end was older, female, controlled but fraying at the edges. You need to understand, she said. They think you inherited it. Inherited what? I whispered. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing. Years ago, she said finally, something happened involving the bride's biological father. Something that couldn't survive daylight. My stomach clenched. And my parent? I asked, already knowing the answer would hurt. Your parent was there, she said. Not involved, not complicit, just present. The only independent witness. The world narrowed to the sound of my own pulse. They believe documents resurfaced, she continued, and that when your parent passed, you received them. I didn't, I said immediately. I have nothing. Another pause. That's what makes this dangerous, she said quietly. They don't know that. The night felt suddenly enormous. Empty. So you cut me out, I said. You erased me because you were afraid of what I might do. No, she said. We erased you because we couldn't predict you. I closed my eyes. They think you're being managed, she added. That you're being taken care of. And if I don't play along? The line crackled. Then everything we buried comes back up, she said. And no one here survives it. I thought of Daniel's smile, of my best friend's fear, of how easily they'd all decided who I was. Let me guess, I said. You want me to leave? Say nothing, and you'll give me answers later. Yes, she said, relief flooding her voice. After the wedding. Cleanly, I laughed. It came out hollow. That was my low point. Sitting outside a wedding I no longer belonged to, being offered silence as a favor, painted as dangerous, for something I didn't even possess. And the worst part? They truly believed they had won. They thought I was contained. They were wrong. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid fear had already burned through me, but because something else had taken its place. A slow, deliberate clarity. The kind that arrives after the worst has already happened, when there's nothing left to protect except the truth. I replayed every conversation, every look, every carefully chosen word. You're the safest option. They think you inherited it. They couldn't predict you. That was the crack. They weren't afraid of what I knew. They were afraid of what I represented. I went home and pulled out the old box, the one I hadn't opened in years. The cardboard was soft at the edges, labelled in my parents' handwriting. Misk. Keep. Inside were letters, photos, receipts, mundane things, a life compressed into paper. No documents, no smoking gun, nothing even remotely explosive. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, because if I didn't have it, and they were sure someone did, then the question wasn't what they were protecting, it was who. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done since the funeral. I called the one person my parent had trusted when things got complicated, a name that hadn't come up once in the last decade, a person I hadn't connected to this wedding at all. They answered on the second ring. I was wondering when you'd call, they said. My stomach flipped. You know what's happening. I know what they think is happening, they replied, which is why you were always the distraction. Bait. The word hit me so cleanly I almost laughed. They uninvited you, the voice continued, because your presence makes the real holder nervous. Always has. I closed my eyes, scenes rearranging themselves with brutal efficiency. The glances, the tension, the way one particular guest had avoided eye contact all night. Someone attending, openly, protected, comfortable. Who? I asked. They named the person, and everything snapped into focus. Not a villain in the obvious sense, not someone dramatic or cruel, someone quiet, respected, helpful, someone who'd been involved in planning, someone who never panicked except when I walked into the room. I thought back to every moment they'd subtly redirected conversations, the way they'd volunteered to handle sensitive family logistics, the way Daniel deferred to them without question. Of course, they weren't guarding the secret, they were the secret holder. And the documents? I asked. A pause. They exist, the voice said, and they were never meant for you. But your parent trusted this person to safeguard them, until it became clear they were too invested in keeping the past buried. I leaned back against the counter, the room suddenly too quiet. So what do I do? You do nothing, they said. At least not loudly. Chess, not checkers. I hung up and drove back to the venue, not inside this time, but close enough to observe, to watch. Weddings are strange like that. Everyone thinks they're invisible in a crowd of joy. They're not. I saw the real secret holder laugh too easily, drink too little, keep checking their phone. I saw the moment someone mentioned my name in passing and watched their shoulders tense. That was my leverage, not evidence, awareness. They thought I was gone. But I wasn't erased. I was repositioned. That evening, as guests toasted and clinked glasses, I sent one message. Just one. They know someone here has it. They just don't know who. No threat. No accusation. Just truth. Within minutes, the atmosphere shifted. The laughter grew brittle. Conversations splintered. The real secret holder left the table twice, to make calls they pretended were about catering issues. Daniel noticed. So did the bride's mother. Control was slipping, and that's when my phone buzzed again. A new message. I'm glad you came. Now they know they can't control the room. I stared at the screen, breath-catching. The sender wasn't who I expected. Not the mother, not my friend, not the voice from the night before. Someone I'd never suspected. Someone who had stayed very, very quiet. Until now. I looked back at the glowing venue one last time. Understanding, finally settling into my bones. I hadn't been uninvited because I was dangerous. I had been uninvited because my presence revealed the truth. Secrets rot fastest when everyone is pretending they don't exist. And as I turned away, leaving the celebration behind me, I knew the confrontation wasn't over. It was just beginning. The fallout didn't come with shouting. It came with silence, the kind that spreads quietly, like a stain soaking into fabric. By the next morning, my phone was heavy with missed calls I didn't answer. Numbers I recognized, numbers I didn't. Messages that started formal and slid into panic by the third or fourth attempt. We need to clarify something. There's been a misunderstanding. Let's all calm down. No one asked me what I knew, because now they understood the problem. I might not know everything, but I knew enough. And worse, I knew who to watch. The real secret holder didn't contact me at all. That told me everything. Instead, I heard about them through others. How they'd left early. How they'd argued with Daniel behind closed doors. How the bride's mother had locked herself in a bathroom and cried for nearly an hour. The wedding still happened. The photos still got posted. The caption still said perfect. But perfection is fragile when it's built on containment. Within weeks, the cracks became public. A postponed honeymoon, a family matter that required distance, a legal consultation that no one could explain without lowering their voice. The documents surfaced not explosively, not as a scandal, but as something far more damaging. A quiet confirmation of what everyone had worked so hard to deny. Truth doesn't need spectacle, it just needs air. The real secret holder lost what they'd been protecting, not their freedom, not their reputation outright, but their immunity. The deference vanished, the protection thinned, invitations stopped coming. Conversations shifted when they entered rooms. People no longer trusted them to hold anything, including power. As for my best friend, no. The woman who used to be my best friend, we spoke once more. She called late, voice small, stripped of certainty. I didn't know how to choose, she said. You already did, I replied. She cried. I listened. I didn't fix it. That was the final boundary. When the call ended, I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. Not because justice had been loud or satisfying in the cinematic sense, but because I was no longer carrying a version of myself that wasn't real. I wasn't dangerous. I wasn't unpredictable. I wasn't bait. I was simply uncontrollable. And that terrified them. In the months that followed, my life grew quieter and stronger. Fewer explanations, fewer apologies, fewer rooms where I felt like I had to earn my place. I learned something that year, something I wish I'd known sooner. People will forgive almost anything except your refusal to be managed. They'll rewrite your intentions. They'll assign you roles you never agreed to play. They'll erase you if it keeps their story intact. But the moment you stop chasing clarity and let the truth expose itself, the entire structure trembles. The last message I ever received about the wedding came months later. No sender name, just one sentence. They still don't know how you did it. I smiled when I read it. Because I hadn't done anything, I'd just stayed present long enough for the lie to collapse under its own weight. And if there's one thing this taught me, one thing worth carrying forward, worth sharing, it's this. When people try to silence you without ever saying your name, it's not because you're powerless. It's because your existence threatens the story they need to survive. And stories built on fear never win in the end. They just run out of places to hide. If you're still here, you already know why this matters. So hit like now, and don't forget to subscribe, because stories like this keep unfolding, whether you're watching or not. And the next one is already in motion.